For the last decade or so, there's been this quiet, high-stakes war raging for the future of PC gaming. But this isn't about PlayStation versus Xbox. No, this is a battle between two absolute giants, Valve and Microsoft, fighting for the very soul of the PC. And believe it or not, it all kicked off with one single prophetic warning. Right here. This is the quote that lit the fuse. Back in 2012, Valve's co-founder, Gabe Newell, who you have to remember is a former Microsoft guy, he drops this bombshell. And it wasn't just some random comment. This was the first shot fired in a platform rebellion that would end up reshaping the entire PC gaming landscape as we know it. So what was this catastrophe that Gabe was so afraid of? Well, it was the fear that Microsoft was getting ready to turn the wonderfully open Wild West PC platform into a closed, locked-down, console-like walled garden. A move that would give Microsoft absolute control. And this, right here, this is what it all boiled down to. On the left, you've got the open PC, the very reason a platform like Steam could even exist. But on the right, that's the future Valve saw with the new Windows Store and Windows 8. A future where Microsoft is the gatekeeper, they take a 30% cut of everything, and they decide what gets published. For Valve, this wasn't just a problem, it was an existential threat. So what do? Valve's response was, well, pretty smart. They called it a hedging strategy. The goal was simple. They needed to build a lifeboat, a totally viable gaming alternative to Windows, just in case Microsoft decided to sink the open PC ship for good. And that lifeboat was going to be Linux. Their first big attempt to launch that lifeboat was this really ambitious project called Steam Machines. Valve went all in, trying to create a whole ecosystem of living room PCs that would run their own Linux-based operating system. They were trying to build a beachhead, a safe zone, completely outside of Microsoft's control. But it was a complete commercial failure. I mean, the hardware from different companies was all over the place. The pricing just couldn't compete with consoles, and nobody really understood what they were. But the real fatal flaw, the one everyone kind of knew was coming, was the games. There just weren't enough native Linux games to play. It was a deal breaker. But that failure wasn't the end of the story. It was actually an incredibly important lesson. Valve realized they couldn't just build the box. They had to solve the software problem at a deep, fundamental level. They had to figure out a way to bring the entire massive library of Windows games with them. So this is where the plan gets really interesting. After the very public failure of Steam Machines, Valve basically retreated. They went quiet for years, went back to the labs, and they started forging a secret weapon that would eventually change, well, everything. And that weapon was Proton. Now, the best way to think of it is as a universal translator for video games. It is not an emulator. Emulators are slow and clunky. Proton is this incredibly sophisticated compatibility layer that takes instructions written for Windows and translates them into a language Linux understands instantly, in real time. So here's a quick look at the magic behind it. A Windows game speaks Microsoft's language, which is DirectX. Proton basically intercepts those commands and using these cool libraries translates them on the fly into Vulkan, a high-performance open-source language that Linux speaks perfectly. It's just a brilliant piece of engineering. Of course, to make a tool like Proton really shine, you need a modern OS to back it up. So enter SteamOS 3.0. By building it on Arch Linux, which has what's called a rolling release, Valve could push out crucial performance and compatibility updates constantly. They could keep up with new game releases in a way their old OS just never could. Okay, so now they have their secret weapon, Proton, and their new nimble operating system, SteamOS 3.0. It was finally time to deploy. And the culmination of all this behind-the-scenes work arrived in the form of a piece of hardware designed specifically to deliver their true weapon to the masses. And that hardware, of course, was the Steam Deck. And wow, was it a success. It sold several million units by late 2023. It didn't just sell well, it basically created and legitimized this whole new market for handheld PC gaming. But here's the real 4D chess move. The Steam Deck was never just about selling a cool handheld. It was a Trojan horse. Its true mission was to get SteamOS and Proton into the hands of millions of actual gamers. Every single Steam Deck sold grew the Linux gaming community and made Steam just a little less dependent on whatever Microsoft decided to do next. And this is where the story takes a turn that I don't think anyone saw coming. Because Valve's alternative didn't just become viable. In the world of handhelds, it didn't just match Windows. It started to beat it. I mean, think about it. For decades, the undisputed rule was that Windows is and always will be the fastest OS for gaming, period. The idea that a compatibility layer, a translator, could ever be faster than running a game natively on Windows, it just seemed impossible. But was it? The data speaks for itself. Independent tests on the exact same hardware, like a Lenovo Legion Go, showed SteamOS consistently outperforming Windows 11. I mean, just look at Horizon Zero Dawn, a mind-blowing 75% performance jump on SteamOS. And even a smaller gap, like in Guardians of the Galaxy, is the difference between playing at 54 frames per second and hitting that buttery smooth 60. This completely flips the script. That Proton overhead people used to worry about, it's basically a myth now. On these low-power handhelds, the real performance killer is the Windows overhead. Windows 11 is a heavy, general-purpose OS. SteamOS is a lean, mean, dedicated gaming machine, and you can see the results right there. So, with a clear performance win, it seems like the war should be over, right? Valve wins. Well, not quite. Valve's platform still faces one final and, frankly, incredibly frustrating barrier. And this is the question that drives every Steam Deck owner crazy. If this thing is so fast and so good, why are some of the biggest online multiplayer games in the world completely unplayable on it? The answer is so frustrating because it's no longer a technology problem. Valve did the work. They collaborated with the makers of major anti-cheat software like BattlEye and EAC, and it's all technically compatible with Proton now. The roadblock is policy. The game developers themselves have to choose to flip the switch and enable support, and many of them just don't because they're worried about cheating or support costs. It's a total standoff. And of course, Microsoft is not just standing still through all this, they're fighting back, and they're fighting back hard. They're leveraging PC Game Pass as this killer value add for Windows handhelds. They're making Windows 11 better for everyone's handhelds. And they're even building a new controller-friendly interface to compete directly with that smooth SteamOS experience. They're adapting. Which brings us right here to today. This long war has totally redefined the PC gaming landscape, and for the first time in a generation, gamers and hardware makers have a real choice. Do you go with the lean, super optimized performance of SteamOS, knowing that some of the biggest games just won't work? Or do you stick with the universal, play-anything compatibility of Windows, but accept that you might be leaving performance on the table? The entire future of PC gaming really does hinge on the answer to that very question.